Here we go.
All right. So, Christian, thank you so much for joining me today. Let's start with the very basic, the classic. Why don't you tell people who are watching us who you are, what you do, where are you from, etc.
Okay. So, hi. First of all, thank you so much for having me today. My name is Christian, and I work at the software agency Das ist Web, and we're located in southern Bavaria, in Munich. And I'm originally from Austria, moved here about 7, 8 years ago for Das ist Web. And I'm working as a PHP developer at Das ist Web and also head of technology. So all kinds of fancy and interesting things like building workflows, integrating different departments, QA, also PHP development. And I'm originally back home in Austria. I had the education as a developer, so I'm also working as a Microsoft developer, speaking of C Sharp, for example, but also mobile development with iPhone. So pretty much everything. And yeah, I love what I do.
Yeah, it shows. It shows. So, right now, are you working with different technologies, or are you like focused on PHP?
I'm working with a couple of technologies. So at my primary work at Das ist Web, I mainly do PHP development, of course, also JavaScript stuff, because the software administration is done in Vue.js. But with my other company I have, there's C Sharp, Swift
Oh,
involved. So all these kinds you need things that you need nowadays to have systems up and running,
so just to be clear,
systems platforms.
this other company that you mentioned, is it like a project of yours, like a personal project?
Yeah, it actually started as a personal project. So my background is I played baseball when I was younger back home in Austria, and I started to take over the IT infrastructure, doing the website, doing the live streams with videos and live ticker stuff. And one day I realized that I wanted to have a scoreboard. So like the runs and goals for soccer, for instance, that you see on TV. And I started to build a my own application to just operate the scoreboard and have some kind of visualization and display. And that somehow turned to out to be a company now.
Okay,
So
great.
there are like 10, 11 different sports and customers from the NHL, minor league baseball TV all across the world. So soccer, cricket, baseball. And that's I would say the benefit of doing two things, because with Das ist Web, I can focus on PHP things and everything speaking about e-commerce. And on the other hand, I can focus on different technologies, and it mixes up, so everyone benefits from the other one. So but there's plenty of PHP stuff in the other company too. So website, e-commerce, microservices. So yeah, so using all these technologies nearly every day, which is
Right.
interesting,
Yeah,
I would say,
that
for me.
sounds like a real challenge, to like balance the two things. Like you have like a full-time job, right?
Mhm.
Okay. So,
Exactly.
all right. Well, congratulations. That you certainly have a full full plate there. So,
Yeah,
all right.
developer by heart.
Yeah, absolutely, and all the way. So you mentioned that you had this developer education in your home country,
Mhm.
right? So
So
just was that your first starting to programming, or how did you ever
some
start with?
my story about how I started. So the I actually wanted to be a game developer when I was way younger. There was that game, I think it was called Serious Sam, that ego shooter with mass monsters and stuff like that. And it was possible to build your own levels and also script some workflows and buildings, and I can barely remember it. And I want to be a game developer, so I wanted to be in that school in Linz in Upper Austria, HTL Learning. So that's like a 5-year after the you got the primary school and stuff like that, and before you start to go to university and do your it's called Abitur in Germany, or Matura in English, like a before you graduate. It's like a 5-year school that focuses on development, so software project management and stuff like that. And I wanted to go there to learn how to probably do baby steps in game development and development itself. And it turned out to be that's what I just love. So it's a 5-year. And actually, the school was split into 2 different sections. So one was the software development section with project management and software building architecture stuff. And the other one was building hardware and building those circular things. And I'm not good in that. And the first, I think, 2-3 years, I wasn't that much into developments because if you get younger, you have older, you have other things that you're focusing on. For me, it was I used to play in a punk band, and I wasn't that good in development. So the first 2-3 years, but later on when we quit the band, I got into my first job, which I really enjoyed that much because in Austria, at least where I live, there's not that much on companies where you really can work or want to work. And for me, the reason was I didn't want to go to university because at that time I still had the band, needed some gear, but then we quit the band and I still had the gear, and I could more focus on development, which then turned out to be my passion in life and what I really want to do. So that's how I basically came to development.
Right. So I felt like really identified with that sentiment of wanting to or getting into programming because of game development. I had the same feeling myself when I first started coding. I wanted to work for Lucasfilm. I was a very big on these games like Maniac Mansion and Monkey Island. Those were like my I don't know, my guiding guys. Later on, I discovered, well, I will probably go another way, but still, it's fine that you mentioned
same
that.
for me. I think I've never did a game after all, a real game. So it's just not. You get older, just things shift.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know the kind of person. Well, actually, I don't know any actual developers who work in such a firm like Lucasfilm or things like that. But right now, I think there is kind of a comeback, or maybe like the gaming industry got more serious. Like I'm seeing all these companies that focus on game development, but I've never worked for one myself. So
sorry to interrupt.
No.
One interesting thing when it comes to game development, I'm not quite sure if it really gets serious or if time to market is way earlier than before. Because I can remember having those PlayStation games on CD, or even earlier before the other consoles and platforms. I barely saw a bug in there. And whenever you try to play a game nowadays, there are like patches all the time with bug fixes, and I'm still wondering how they did do it back then. Because those QA guys and girls were probably really good if they had one. So that's what I think might not be that serious anymore.
Okay, interesting. Well, in all fairness, I have to say I stopped keeping tracks on games like way I mean a long time ago. I don't know how it happened, but I used to be a very passionate about computer games, but somehow I left it over.
Me
Well,
too. So don't want to go the wrong direction. I'm barely playing any games and nowadays, but just still
how could
seeing
with a full-time job in a company of your own, when could you find the time to even go?
you got to sleep. Yeah,
Yeah,
sleep is also important.
yeah. On the topic of this, what you mentioned that this the QA people used to be like really good on the gaming industry. I'm always like fascinated by the people who were developing games. I started with Commodore 64. That's kind of tells about my age. And that was I believe, well, yeah, 64K in memory, and I'm still amazed, like how did it pull it to create such an amazing set of games? It's like those were the real developers. I think.
Exactly. There's one thing popping up in my mind when you say that nowadays developing it's. I mean, there are lots of amazing tools, projects, and developers out there. But if I just look back, I'm still very grateful that I was able to at least play around with pointers to develop with pointers, memory allocation. Even we were the final class still learning assembler, at least on paper.
Yeah.
But nowadays you just develop anything, and the CPU, everything is good enough to just handle it. And especially games back then, that was sometimes really, I would say, a masterpiece.
Oh yeah.
Because
Oh yeah. Absolutely. I think in a way it's like the complexity shifted from like a really like hard technical problems, like how to optimize for the very very few resources, into now what are my best tools, from all the whole available things, like how do I choose the best tool set for my project. And that kind of, well, again, it's not like it's maybe it's not simpler today. I just believe that the complexity shifted to a completely different different space. So cool. All right. So now back to the PHP things. How did you first encounter or get into PHP in particular?
First time PHP.
Yeah.
That was just a helper tool because I needed a server backend. So I mentioned that I used to play baseball, and we're doing was doing the website infrastructure and live streams, and I was also starting with mobile development at that time. I think probably 2008. 2 years after the first iPhone has been released, and it was a pretty awesome thing to finally do some. Because I'm more the developer who doesn't want to do boring applications, but more the modern stuff, and I just love that. And since the release of the initial iPhone and the apps and infrastructures out there, I was like on fire. So actually I quit my job and started to work at an iPhone company or mobile development company, because I thought it's so much more interesting at that time. So anyway, I was doing the iPhone app for that baseball club, and every app that has data or should display data needs some server backend. So that was the first time I was trying PHP. So I tried to figure. Didn't do any web development or anything related to web before. Almost I did ASP.NET, but modern stuff, I would say. So I was looking for a good technology that made me do a website, some probably JSON API structures and things you used to have there. And I saw that PHP from a friend of mine, and I tried to learn it, and it was the easiest way for me. So I barely needed any time to have something working there. The problem is, if I would look now back to that source code, it was like horrible. It's a mixture of, speaking of the things that you saw on screen, so not the APIs. It's a mixture of HTML and PHP. Like you used to mix those before you had those multi-view controllers stuff. but it was so easy. And still nowadays, I prefer PHP over other stuff, because all you have or need is something that should probably already exist, Apache, PHP install, stuff like that. And then you have the option to do almost anything. I mean, at least for me with PHP. So that was the first time. I don't think it's existing anymore, and I had some serious troubles getting rid of PHP 5.6 there, but it was still fun. And I think it was also one of the reasons why I agreed on working with Das ist Web. So that was like in 2015 January. It was my first day almost, and it was like the thing that I used to do with PHP, but PHP as a full-time developer, working with Shopper, which is based now completely on Symfony, absolutely amazing stuff. And I just loved it, and that's why my path went down that road, I would say.
Okay, cool. So that's really really interesting, and I was actually going to ask you about why choosing PHP, but you already expressed that. So I'm going to go to well, this question, like, how do you feel when you? I mean, you always heard it sometime, probably recently, that PHP is dead. How do you feel about that?
I don't really care, because I don't think that it's that. I mean, just look at what is going on at the moment. You got the what has recently been done, the PHP Foundation, to bring even more more work and effort into PHP releases of 8 and 8.1. And what I really like with PHP, or if you look back on 5.6, that was like horrible. But what was actually horrible, the way it allowed you to work as a developer, so still like JavaScript. So it's not bad at all, but it allowed you to be bad. And being more type strict, and finally having enums. I mean, come on, enums took so long. It's really a grown-up language by now, and especially if you are coming from a world like C#, Java, and those other languages, there were things that I really missed, but they are now being added over and over. And I think the next couple of years will bring way more features. And I really like most of the things that I like are the basic functionalities. So I'm not really into, I mean, I know Lambda callbacks, stuff like that, functional coding, but I like it type strict, for example, because that's just a foundation that I really want to see in a programming language. And for me, PHP is absolutely not that. It's actually the other way around. It's becoming more and more important nowadays for web development.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there was something I wanted to add to what you were saying, or maybe like a summary, is what I always tell people is like, greatest thing about PHP is with very little knowledge you can get something working, and at the same time that is the worst thing about PHP. As it allows the people to code pretty much the way they want, and I think that is mostly what kind of remained in the collective mind. Like people saw so much ugly code, ugly PHP code out there, that they kind of had this association with PHP equals bad programming practices, which is of course not true at all. But it's kind of something that got attached to PHP's reputation. So,
but they know JavaScript, right?
Well, I don't know. Everyone has to speak for themselves. Well, I believe, since we're talking about JavaScript, there is a lot of again, good frameworks being developed, especially when it comes to Node.js, and giving some more structure to the language. But Oh, that's another thing I kind of almost slipped my mind, but I was saying all of what you were mentioning, like the whole new development of the language and the new versions and stuff. And just recently, I read an article that really like, whoa, was well, somebody who was open source maintainer who was complaining about the speed of the new releases and like keeping up with all the new features and backwards incompatible changes was giving them a really hard time. So
Mhm.
I'm kind of wondering. I mean, I believe every programmer out there is like anxious to try the new shiny toy, like every time, and I do it myself, of course, but I am kind of reluctant, well, not reluctant, but I'm wondering if this speed of new releases is actually beneficial or it can like be backfire.
I would say it's the same as with game development. Is it good to have a game nearly every day and all these patch updates? So it can be horrible. Yeah. I tried to talk about what I recently discovered. So I'm like the guy who holded on to a specific version, like 1 point whatever, to a very long time. But I figured out that I was always like, okay, I will upgrade to 2.0 when something really huge changes. But I've discovered after years, while doing an analysis just recently, that upgrading, probably in that case the major version number, helps also with a mindset. So I think it can be a bad move to do more and more releases in less amount of time. But once you have handled the quality pipeline, it's a good thing to release as soon or as often as possible. So I do think if PHP manages to have to avoid bugs, have a really good QA setup, then I would be happy to see more and more releases every now and then. And I do also think with the thing we saw with PHP 5.6, especially 5.6, it's just not possible nowadays. While the world is so fast, you just can't stick to old versions and just wait until let's say a long time until for instance PHP 9 is coming or whatever. So if they have enough power with QA, they should bring us
Okay.
developers to the path to update our operating system and the platforms we're using.
Okay, right. Yeah, I get this kind of the same feeling. Like I prefer to do all the small updates constantly because when you left the thing unattended for some time and suddenly you realize, oh, I need to upgrade like 3 versions, a very big leap like that, it can be a real pain. Um, so yeah, and I'm also very excited about the new features coming to PHP over and over. I have the same feeling like it's maturing very much and very fast also. So that's really good. And so I have one question for you. Like you are like a team leader, right? You have people reporting to you,
Hmm. Hmm.
right? Okay. So how do you say, or what should somebody like have or show you in order for you to consider them a senior developer?
That is a good question. um, for me, a senior developer, so not really related to PHP, but in general, is someone who has let's say an algorithm, a huge and complex algorithm, but he can explain it to you like you were not even a developer in human understandable words. And the other thing is speaking more about the algorithm itself. Um, I think a real senior can be seen within the first couple of minutes by looking at his code, because you see those beautiful paragraphs how the algorithm is made up. You do not see any code that you just don't get while just looking at it. So if you see all these long assignments that you really don't know what the heck is going on. So for me, a senior developer has skills to speak with normal non-developer people and also code on a level that every new beginner of beginning developer understands.
Okay.
So that is how we train our people.
Cool, cool. And how do you feel about senior developers being able to maybe mentor junior most developers or stuff like that? My question here is, do you consider that like a part of the job description, or should somebody like, I am a developer and I can code anything you want, but I'm not going to devote my time to help someone else improve themselves? Do you think senior developers should be like open to that, or even eager to do that as part of their job, or it's like a separate thing?
I think it's to train other people. That is the question. I actually never thought about really saying that or explicitly talking about it, because for me, it just makes sense. That's what you, as a real senior developer or good developer with lots of experience, you just automatically help other people. You just it's nothing that should be, it's like unit tests. It's nothing that should be written down as a requirement for either a job, a project. It's just something that you should always do.
Right.
And even if you are not a senior developer, you might know something a senior doesn't know, especially with the fast changing world nowadays.
Yeah, sure.
But it's always about helping, and shouldn't be in the job description, should be
Okay.
all
Well,
the
yeah,
time.
maybe the question wasn't really. I meant the job description as a like a metaphor, like it's something you would expect from, and obviously you do, but it's something
Yeah.
you would expect from a senior developer, and that's
Yeah.
interesting. I don't know if I would mention it in a job description, like in a job ad or anything like that, but I think it's very important to have your expectations be clear when you bring someone in, or maybe it's something that you would like ask someone on an interview, or some way to tell, will this guy be like open to do this kind of things, or does he prefer to work on his own or anything? I know.
Yeah.
I have
That's
found.
also something. Sorry.
No, I mean, I have done my share of hiring, and I found many different personality types, and you kind of have to, it's like this, the Lone Ranger, which you can say like, yeah, this guy is definitely going to put out the fires when they appear, but on the day-to-day, he might not be so good at helping other team members grow.
And when I just wanted to say something about hiring too. So when we do hire people, I'm also in the in the group of people where we have those job interviews with them. I obviously can't say what exactly we're looking for, because otherwise we would, after this interview, probably hear it. But most of the times it's I mean, we are looking for good people, and if you want to apply for job.de, just try it. But we're looking for good people, but not all only good people, but also people that are part of the family. That means teaching other people automatically. That means how have you been integrated in your previous company. So that is what is important nowadays. Otherwise, we just have new employees, new developers that come, code, and go to the next company. And that's especially in these times with the pandemic, and you have all these home offices and remote developers, you want to search people that match the family and are good. And sometimes that's hard to find.
Yeah, absolutely. Right. All right. So this is really interesting and everything. I kind of running out of time, so I want to ask you one particular question. I always like to ask my my guests, which is what are the tools that you use for your job, like the tools that can't be missing from your working environment. Like you just bought a brand new computer, you got home, and it's time to install stuff. So what is that stuff?
Oh, that stuff is a lot. But first of all, PHP Storm, of course. The way to go, speaking of IDEs, then we use a Git Tower, not using it on CLI. It's just a beautiful piece of software. We're using Mac, but I think it's also available for Windows. But when you do a lot of Git management, you want to have a good UI client. Then we have PHP Storm, Git, Docker. Of course, Docker. I wouldn't ever do anything without Docker anymore. And then speaking of applications, I think that it may be a snippets application for some code snippets. And then for me, personally, the most important things for projects are the tools I use in there. So developer dependencies. So we have PHP Stan, CS Fixer, compatibility, PHP Unit, Cypress. So these are all project related and not really computer related tools,
Right.
but those are always a must have for me.
Cool, cool, great. So I got maybe two more questions for you, and the first is how do you keep up with tech? With all the new things like being thrown at you all the time. How do you keep up?
I don't think one could say he can keep up, because nobody can keep up in that way. But I have the benefit of having my second company. So during the day, or when I work at Das Web, I have the opportunity to, besides the projects, our boss is really amazing. We have a DevOps team, so we have things like Puppet, Consul, and all these fancy things besides working for our lovely customers. So this is one part where we try to discover new things. And on the other hand, when I work with my LiveScore company, then I'm involved in all these different technologies too. So also about when it comes to video broadcasting and all these stuff. So it can be a 24/7 job. For me, it's probably a 18-hour job often, and that's how it works. But if you are passionate enough, so also with pipelines, Cypress, there are so plenty of things possible. If you really feel that and are born for this, 'cause I think that's what I want to do in life. It's not that hard to try to keep up. It's just a good hobby.
Great, good approach. So great. Okay, so before we wrap up, this is the final question: is where can people go to find out more about you? Do you have like a blog or website or anything like that you want to share?
Yeah, I think the most important platform could be Twitter. It's Boxbank Racer. So I wasn't used to do lots of social stuff. Don't have a website, only for my companies and products. But Twitter would be the most important one. I'm sometimes doing some webinars and videos too. Besides that, I think GitHub or maybe yeah, LinkedIn. LinkedIn would be good too. See Dangl.
Well, great. So thank you so much for coming. I really enjoyed it, and I hope the viewers of this video also enjoyed them. And should anybody have any question, you can leave a comment right below here, or ask Christian via Twitter or myself, and we'll be happy to answer as soon as possible. Thank you so much for watching, and let's meet up some other time.
Thank you so much for having me. Have a good day. Bye.